Good morning. My name's Tom Malm, and I'm a part-time flexible, a PTF clerk, working in Landenberg, Pennsylvania today. And I didn't grow up in the Postal Service, and I'm basically within the last 5 years, I'm a recent union member. But where I see us heading and where the conversations I see us going as a union, the direction I see us heading as a Postal Service, as a government entity, the sentiment of our president and those who have great influence in what becomes of us, some myths and misnomers about what capitalism is and how it is supposed to work, and some changes that my generation made that have sent America in a direction that it needn't go. I want to talk to postal workers about their influence. I want to talk to postal workers about the opportunities we have to stand up now, change the direction of our own entity and our own place that takes care of us, where we contribute to society and make it a better place. I want to talk about privatizing the Postal Service and what options might be there for us, should that be a conversation we should have.
Years ago, when I had my company Sound Brands, I attended the NAMM show, and of course, I had 3 different brands from all over the world that were coming to the trade show to sort of support the product that I sold for them here in America. For weeks and weeks and weeks, I'm looking at my 10 by 20 booth, and how can I get drum kits in there? How can I get guitar amps in there? And where can I set up the pedal display for the German company that talks about their new products and gives people an opportunity to sample, see, hear, and work with a demonstrator and that part of the booth showing things how to work. Now, I worked on flow, I laid it out just like I was building a house, put everything where it needed to be, energy and hours to make sure I had the best situation for showing people how things work. In comes the president, owner of the pedal company from Germany. And he opens up, he shakes my hand, steps in the booth, kind of looks at it from side to side, opens up his bag, starts moving things around in my booth. And I'm not really enthusiastic about it, to say the least. I'm like, hey, I put some work in this. This is what I was thinking. I talked them through it. I got customers. I got 3 brands, not just yours. I got customers coming in here. I got them walking through here, and I got them walking through here. And this is the flow, and this is how it works, and here's how people are going to read them, explain what goes on, and this is how. And at the end, we write orders, and it's business. As I'm telling him this, I kind of step out of the way, and he's continuing to work. He's continuing to rearrange. He's moving structures. And I'm protesting with a bit of passion now. But as time went on, I actually was seeing genius. And as time went on, I was seeing sense that he saw that I didn't. And when he was finished, I said, that actually is really great. And my German manufacturer, the owner of the company, turns to my marketing director and says, I always ignore Tom's first reaction to everything. So the spirit here is in a lesson from General Ulysses S. Grant, and that is to know yourself better than you know your enemy. And I picked up clues throughout my life that have let me know myself well enough to know that you probably should ignore my first reaction to everything. So what I'm going to present here in Ignore Tom are ideas about the Postal Service, about business, that I've been writing about since my first book, Absolutely Vulnerable, The Crisis of Strategic Business Planning in America, that I published in 2009. Now, after a decade of working at the Postal Service window as a clerk, and after communicating and reading and following Senate hearings, congressional hearings, reports from the OIG, releases from the Regulatory Commission, the Inspector General's overviews, and after communicating with hundreds and hundreds of decision makers in America, following every single element of the toolkit that I've perfected over the years and that I've used with unique success to bring success every single time I've used it.
Imagine a restaurant, not just any restaurant, but a beloved diner, serving up comfort food for generations. Now imagine that diner slowly changing. The portions get smaller, the prices go up. And the service? Well, let's just say it's not what it used to be. That's the USPS today. A once reliable service slowly fading away. The culprit? A series of missteps, poor planning, and a failure to adapt to the changing world. The result? A steady decline in service quality and a public losing faith. We're not just talking about inconvenience here. Slower mail means real consequences. Businesses lose money when invoices arrive late. People face delays receiving vital medications. The Postal Service, once a symbol of connection, is becoming a source of frustration. This is about more than just mail. It's about the erosion of a public service, a fundamental part of what holds our country together. It's time to ask ourselves, how did we get here? And more importantly, how do we fix it?
The way we fix the Postal Service's financial problems, short-term and long-term, is we eliminate the restriction on price increases that is tied to the consumer price index for urban consumers, which worked fine when there was no erosion of first-class mail. But the law also says that we're supposed to be able, every category of mail is supposed to pay for itself, and the law is written so that that category can't.
For 12 straight years, the USPS had lost money in very correctable conditions. The press has called it a flawed business model and pointed to outdated regulations as choking its finances. It was not perfectly true, because the remark passes over the fundamental problem. The Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act of 2006 demands the USPS to pre-fund retiree health benefits at an unaffordable rate. The Postmaster General, the Postal Board of Governors, and all of the lawmakers and influencers from the White House to the clerk of your congressional district's community office have no real control to fix the core issue. The people Americans elected had restricted Postal Service management from raising prices effectively. In 2019, the USPS closed the fiscal year, October 2018 through September 2019, with the appearance of financial crisis. Yet, the $8.8 billion in losses was mostly fake. $4.8 billion was caused because one flaw in a nearly perfect act, signed into law by President George W. Bush, said the Postal Service could only collect the cost of performing services, which would guarantee American commerce the lowest possible prices. But the law also tied the maximum price increases to the Consumer Price Index for urban consumers. This meant the collected price for a postage stamp could not meet the cost-cutting obligation of its pricing. When lawyers conclude things, making good sense is not a requirement.
While everyone's going digital, smart businesses are going back to mailboxes. I just cracked the code on marketing my gym. While everyone's burning cash on Facebook ads nobody sees, I discovered EDDM, every door direct mail. For less than $100, my flyer lands in 400 neighbors' hands. It works for any business. Lemonade stands, lawn care, churches, local shops, you name it. Everyone wins. I'm starting the Save My Zip Codes Brick and Mortar Post Office Challenge. Let's make August EDDM month and show Congress that local businesses and mail delivery make America strong. As labor, as local supervisors, postmasters, and POOMs. As marketing genius that guides that powers of L'Enfant Plaza. As businesses needing impact, especially in these times, let's redefine ourselves in the true Darwinian fashion. Adapts as labor, organized to lead what business must be.
Between the time they were 25 cents and 50 cents, if we trended the average household income as the limit for how we could increase prices so that it wouldn't change the value the Postal Service meant then and now, if we trended that, we would generate another $8 billion a year simply. If we trended the average mail letter cost of our top 5 European trading partners, we would add $26.9 billion annually. So if Congress wants to do the right thing and fix the Postal Service, they will eliminate, modify, change the restriction on what we can charge first-class mail so that it can at least approach what the threshold for pricing is in the global market, so that it can approach the kind of pricing that's experienced everywhere else in the world. And if they did that, we would be able to fund the pension for 200 years.
The Postal Board of Governors elected a Postmaster General in 2020 that sees no urgency in letter delivery because it cannot practically compete in the digital age. In 2020, the 75th Postmaster General's tenure began demonstrating how American-minded business leaders regularly set vision, define their mission, and execute plans. It's a perfect storm. Postmaster General Megan J. Brennan had called for action throughout her term. She proposed integrating USPS retiree health benefits with Medicare, reinstating a price surcharge that temporarily reduced losses, and she persisted that reforms must come to allow more appropriate pricing. Despite urgent calls for reforms, congressional changes that could have eliminated all recorded losses were refused until 2022, years after Postmaster General Brennan stepped away.
So it happens that I began recording this blog on the first day of the World Series in the year 2022. And it just so happens that the Cinderella team in the World Series is my Philadelphia Phillies. And I love baseball and I love the Phillies. And I'm so excited because, here I am. I'm able to wear my Phillies jersey, my 1946 Robin Roberts jersey. And sort of to get an idea of my expectations for the kinds of conversations that we can have about the Postal Service is when I say to people, this is my Robin Roberts jersey, more often than not, their response is, oh, she survived cancer. So in the context of that comes my expectation for anything.
America, a nation founded on ideals of liberty, justice, and representation. Yet somewhere along the way, the dream seems to have gotten bogged down. We find ourselves staring across a chasm of division, our political system seemingly more interested in serving itself than the people it's meant to represent. But here's the thing, no problem is unsolvable if we can just get out of our own way. Let's be clear, politics isn't the problem, it's the way we're doing it that's broken. It's time to acknowledge the elephant and donkey in the room. Our current political system is failing us. The influence of money, the partisan gridlock, the erosion of trust, these are not mere cracks in the foundation, they are full-blown fault lines threatening to split us apart. We see it in our daily lives, in the struggles of everyday Americans who feel unheard and unseen. We see it in the cynicism and apathy that has infected our civic discourse. This isn't about pointing fingers, it's about recognizing that we, the people, deserve better. We deserve a system that works for us, not against us. A system where representation is a reality, not just a word in a dusty textbook.
Let's talk about lobbying. It sounds innocuous enough, even kind of boring. But behind the scenes, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry that wields enormous power over the laws that govern our lives. Corporations and special interest groups pour money into lobbying efforts, hoping to sway politicians and influence legislation in their favor. The problem isn't just that money talks, it's that it often drowns out the voices of ordinary citizens. When well-funded lobbyists have the ear of lawmakers, it shouldn't be a surprise that policies often seem to benefit the few at the expense of the many. Think about it. How can we expect our elected officials to make impartial decisions when they are constantly bombarded with campaign contributions and promises of future support? The answer is, we can't. This isn't just cynicism, it's a clear conflict of interest that undermines the very principles of democracy. We need to shine a light on this dark underbelly of our political system. Transparency in lobbying efforts, stricter campaign finance laws, and empowering ordinary citizens to have their voices heard. These are just some of the steps we can take to break the grip of money on our political process.
So we're going to talk about strategy in the way that 4% do. We're going to talk about strategy the way that people who came from Japan and in 2 decades eliminated any serious contenders from the American electronics industry and started to take large market shares away from the American automobile industry. Now, what's interesting about that is the ideas that they used are pretty much the ideas I'm going to be talking about here that were gained by studying the things that I'm going to talk about here with the Postal Service, by studying General Motors. And who gave the most to of market share away for those foreign invaders? Well, it was General Motors.
The Boxwood Road GM plant, which employed many Americans over many generations, was closed by Mr. Bloom. An Amazon plant employing hundreds fewer in the same space replaced it.
But we have to understand that in 2009, 2010, it was reorganized by the same person who was the second chair of the United States Postal Service's Postal Board of Governors, whose name is on the 10-year plan Delivering for America, that has done nothing but fail from the first day it started.
There was a period of time when the automobile company, Citroën of France, was owned by Michelin Tire, also from France. This picture shows a creation from the time. From appearances, Thomas Padlan-Malm wondered if someone in the tower where product choices were being made, someone crafted the brilliance to sell cars with unmatched road adhesion by putting dozens of tires on them. The marketing adage since the electric light bulb has been that the light bulb itself was not the genius, but rather a light bulb that needed replacing was the true brilliance. Imagine the accounting department's enthusiasm in a tire company that decided cars need 8 or 10 tires that produce 8 or 10 times the opportunities to sell replacements. But from the picture, Thomas knew he needed more information. After digging just below the surface, Thomas learned that the car was built for the specific purpose of testing tires on a test track. In most discussions about the U.S. mail, most people involved are missing critical information. And too many people say stuff that needs to be better informed. Too many of them were elected by us.
We could talk forever about what's wrong and who should be blamed. But that would lead us to a political conversation. If our motivations are not political, and we take actions to make things better for America without taking actions detrimental to some Americans, and if we stick to an evolving plan with specific long and short-term goals that benefit most, and if we can separate ourselves from the failing political paradigm that has only proved its ability to raise money for itself, we can create a sustainable society for all peoples who live under the red, white, and blue flag. We're at that point where it seems we haven't much other choice.
But before getting too far out of our way and too far ahead of ourselves, I want to talk about an interview I just saw with David Gellis. And David's a New York Times business writer. And he was talking about a new book that he had published that characterizes Jack Welch as the central cause for the end of capitalism in America. Now, a lot of us might think there's capitalism. There's no end to capitalism in America. Look at the businesses are going crazy. Look at Wall Street. Look at my stocks. Ba, 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 ba. But that's not capitalism. And we're going to talk about what capitalism is later. But what's important is I have a very different view of what Jack Welch's time at GE meant as its chief strategist. And from a strategist's mind, more importantly, we need to discuss how Mr. Gellis's perspective is the popular one, the one that explains the perception of what fake news is and how it really shouldn't necessarily be considered fake. The news that's told is actually misunderstood by the storytellers.
Let's talk about Jack Welch, not as a caricature, but as a leader who shaped American business. For 2 decades, he led General Electric with a vision rooted in strengthening the American economy and valuing an organized workforce. Welch believed that shareholder results come from doing the right things for customers, products, and employees, not from cutting corners. His approach to underperformance was not to fire as policy, but to recognize when someone was beyond their capacity and to help them find a better fit. Most jobs cut from GE during his tenure were spun off, sold, or reinvented, minimizing job loss burdens for society. Welch did not normalize workforce cuts. Instead, he focused on giving GE a clear leadership identity, eliminating only those businesses not in first place or striving for it. He championed innovation, brand clarity, and a relentless focus on primary constituents, customers, products, and employees. The story of Welch as a ruthless villain oversimplifies a complex legacy. In reality, his leadership was about building a strong, competitive, and ethical American company. If we want to understand the real lessons of Welch's era, we have to look beyond the myths and examine the machinery of leadership and vision he left behind.
David Gillis said that Welch's ruthless corporate strategy popularized downsizing, popularized eliminating 10% of GE's workforce annually to boost his profits. He said that David Gillis said that Welch prioritized shareholder value above all else, and he's sidelined workers, he sidelined innovation, he ended long-term stability, he used mergers and acquisitions, and he brought industry consolidation, he reduced the competitive dynamism of markets, and basically what the New York Times business writer concluded in his book is that GE shifted from an industrial manufacturing company to being more about financial services. And Mr. Gillis's conclusion has within it basically a misperception that I once shared about Jack Welch. Before I started studying Jack Welch and studying what he believed, what he said, and what he really did, and how it impacted the success he had. Welch's decision-making, I understood in the 1980s. I was the marketing manager for a typewriter company that launched a machine in a category that one consumer reviewer said was the best of the 3 products that they tested. It concluded from about 3,000 words, which detailed differences between every feature and function, that my brand offered the best of the 3. Now, here's the truth. All 3 products were identical, aside from cosmetic shell differences. And every single feature was identical. And the absolute mimicking of ergonomics and layout was unchanged from all of them. Now, the typewriter that finished first and the typewriter that finished second were all designed and manufactured and delivered by the company that finished third. Now, is that fake news? Malcolm X believed that the media, they had all the power. Edward Bulwer Lytton, he wrote a play, and in the play he said, "The pen is mightier than the sword." Gil Scott-Heron, he told us that the revolution will not be televised. Now, all of these things say the same thing. They say words are powerful, and the people who control the words are the ones with the power. What I envision is the rising generation realizing where they are and stepping forward to help with this idea. Fortunately, when I start this talking about the idea of privatizing the Postal Service, I'm going to start with an idea that's going to pay for all the bills, pay for everything that could possibly cost the Postal Service anything to serve excellently at the standard it did at and before 2019, when all of the USA got their mail within 3 days. I want to take a look at a transformational idea that starts with each zip code, each 3-digit zip, organized to be successful based on the unique needs and wants of that community. We have people at Capitol Hill making decisions about America. We have people making decisions at L'Enfant Plaza. based on not all the information, but based on general information. I work in the South Carolina Low Country, where the population is gaining some of the largest growth in the state that's gaining more growth than any other state in the nation. Yet, we're cutting routes, we're cutting force. How does that make sense?
Picture the USPS as an employee-owned business. I know, it sounds crazy, right? But hear me out. This isn't just some pie-in-the-sky idea, it's a game changer that could revolutionize how we think about mail delivery in America. We're talking about a system where the people who know the business best, the employees themselves, have a real stake in its success. And let's be honest, who knows your neighborhood better than your local mail carrier? They're basically the unofficial mayors of your street. Enter the EDDM challenge. Every door direct mail that could send a $1.5 billion message to Washington. For as little as $50, local businesses can reach every address on a mail route. That's the kind of precision marketing that changes everything. This is where Ignore Tom comes in. Thomas Padlan-Malm's streaming program that puts strategic thinking back into Postal Service. This isn't just about fixing the mail. It's about empowering 600,000 postal workers and serving 23 million businesses better. It's about returning strategic thinking to American business and making every zip code count. Ready to learn more? Visit ifiwearpostmastergeneral.com and join the EDDM challenge starting August 2025. Because when we empower the workforce and think strategically, we don't just deliver mail, we deliver America's future. Why do we so often reduce leaders like Jack Welch to simple labels? Because we crave clear stories, heroes and villains, wins and losses. But real leadership, especially at a company like GE, is far more complex. Because of what sells magazines and newspapers on the stand, and keeps us from turning the channel because that feeling of outrage feels so physically good to us. Welch's legacy, as Thomas Padlan-Malm has written in an unpublished Wall Street Journal letter, later sent to all 100 senators in 2020, before Mr. DeJoy was approved by their votes as the 75th Postmaster General, is a study in both bold vision and difficult trade-offs.
President Trump called the post office a joke. Is it a joke?
Postal Service is not a joke.
You made a statement before the Senate the other day to Senator Gary Peters. You've had no contact with the Trump campaign during your tenure. Is that correct?
I've had no contact with the Trump campaign. I've spoken to the president. I've spoken to Steve Mnuchin. I've spoken to other people, but I've had no contact about the poll. I've not spoken to anybody about the Postal Service.
Did you not tell the Board of Governors this month in August that in fact you had contact with the Trump campaign to ask them to stop their attacks on the Postal Service and voting by mail?
I have put word around to different people to plead that this is not helpful to.
Are you tired of waiting for something important only for it to get lost? For immigrants, that wait can change their lives. Postal delays are more than just an inconvenience for immigrants. We're talking about green cards, work permits and travel documents, vital pieces of their lives. Without them, people can't work, travel, or even prove they belong here. Take Maria, for example. She's stuck in limbo because her work permit is somewhere in the postal abyss, or Ahmed, who can't visit his sick mother overseas because his travel document got lost. These aren't just letters, they're lifelines. The stress and vulnerability these delays cause are immense. Families are separated, careers are on hold, and dreams are left dangling. Let's remember that behind every delayed or lost document, there's a real person with hopes and struggles. It's time we fixed this.
If you envision the kind of world rife with broad opportunities for prosperity and realistic hopefulness for an evolving and improving quality of life for the typical American willing to invest their sweat, then you surely can envision this coming from a talented, ethical, and civic-minded men and women who will emerge with vision and the necessary skill sets as they respond to a moral call to service and duty.